So I wanted to talk this afternoon about the importance of the methodology of design. So I have a lot of friends in France who are looking at Hollywood, thinking that we have a formula and exploiting the formula over and over again. Well, actually, after many years of working in that field, about 25, I can tell you we don't. Making a movie is a very messy process, very complex process, and very human process. So we do have a story, and I'm going to talk more specifically about the methodology. Um, so the production design of an animated movie is basically what I'm going to go. So a secret revealed about the formula? No, I won't, because there is none. So a little bit about me. I went to the École des Beaux Arts de Paris a long time ago now. I studied fine arts. Then I went to a school called Les Ateliers, which is the National School for Industrial Design. And a lot of the methodology I'm going to talk about actually today is based on the methodology for industrial design for designing films. And I'm going to go a bit more in detail into that. So beginning, I was making fun of Disney, very young. So that's Metal Hurlant, Heavy Metal, which was a French magazine at the time. And I wanted to, I did a kind of Leonardo da Vinci, which was my mentor of past centuries, and having a little bit of fun with that. Some books. The one on the upper right was about Antz, and that's the book that actually took me to the US at one point in '96 when DreamWorks was created. I got a phone call telling me, we've seen your book, we want to design a movie, there's Woody Allen in it. Woody Allen is a huge star in France, as he knows and makes fun of, actually, himself. And it all started there. So I got a synopsis, a page and a half. I never designed a movie. And it was like creating a sci-fi film. So I started to sketch. At the time, we didn't have emails, so I sent FedEx packages every Saturday evening, and here you go. So I came to the US, and we did Antz in about 2 years. And then after that, I stayed about 20 years at DreamWorks and art directed Shrek, production design, Shrek 2, Puss in Boots. And I just finished the design for Monster Hunt 2. The director, Roman Huey, is a friend of mine. We worked together for a long time at DreamWorks, actually. So here you go, crazy stuff. A lot less, impressive than the rover on Mars. This is not very serious, Monster Hunt. So I wanted to talk first about the structure of a studio in Hollywood. So basically, DreamWorks or Paramount or Universal, all the studios have about the same structure. There is a head. At DreamWorks, it was Jeffrey Katzenberg. Under that, you have an overall staff of, head of studio, production executives. And under that, each movie is little startup in a way. So you have, so everybody is fighting for resources inside the studio. You are trying to get onto the story you think is the best one. For example, Shrek, nobody wanted to do it. They thought it was a story that sucked. Same thing for Lion King, which both of them became, some of the highest grossing films. So we can make mistakes. It's actually a fairly unpredictable industry. So what is a production designer? Because maybe all of you are not familiar with that. So the job of the the production designer his responsibility is to design the film in its entirety. So from imagining what the characters look like, the sets, the lighting of the film, you go from 0 to color timing at the extreme end of the movie. So you're part of, there's a very precise way of naming people in Hollywood, and the team of filmmakers are producers, director, production designers. It's a little triumvirate that's essential to the good, health of a production on a film. So usually it happens that way. You have a producer coming in, and he tells you, in the case of DreamWorks, is Jeffrey Katzenberg coming to you and saying, okay, design me something I haven't seen before. So that's the trick. And that is actually, common to a lot of innovation in the industrial world. So after that, anything is possible. So it's a scary thought. You have basically a script, full of words, and you read the story. So for example, that's one very old version of Shrek, one of the first ones. So you have to know that Shrek was about 7 years in the making, and the reputation of the movie was really bad. It went through very troubled times. It was extremely difficult to do. It was supposed to be at first maquettes, with CG character integrated in it, when actually at the time it was way too difficult to make. But by sheer will, Katzenberg decided, it was a very small children's book, Katzenberg decided this movie has to be done. So he changed the team, he changed the head of the film, directors, producers, production designers, all went away, came and went away, came and so. It was a long cycle until it got to a little group which I was luckily part of, and that actually made the film as we know it now. So the difficulty is when you get a script full of words and you get a story, is identify that story, because you want to give a unique design to the film you're doing. You want it to be iconic as much as you can, which means you have to take risks in the design. So one story, one design, and that's one of the things that I think is very important to teach the young students in entertainment, is because it's a scary thought when you actually have to design a film, and we have now a new animation section at Art Center, which is more specifically targeted to animation. In CG, anything is possible, which means you can absolutely design everything you dream of. So what do? There is infinite possibilities. You need a methodology. And that's what I'm going to talk about. Some of the words I hate the most is whatever or cool, because that doesn't mean anything. And you always have to answer the why question. Why are you designing this? Why is that thing looking the way it does? So one very simple anecdote. On Avatar, James Cameron looking at some designs of spaceships. He basically, the young artist showing the work was saying, okay, well, so here it is, it's a spaceship. And Cameron said, well, if you can bullshit me in explaining to me how it works, I buy it. So, there is a logic to the method. And of course, half an hour is not enough to go deep into all that. You'll have to come to Art Center. Nevertheless, there is a way out of the fear of the infinite possibilities. So the job of production designer is, in a way, more to think than to paint, even though I do paint and I do draw, and Art Center is extremely strong in the craftsmanship of the work. What I put the emphasis on is the thinking process, not the execution. The execution is important, but it's the minimum. the thinking process and the conceptualization is really what matters. So we go from big concept, because that's the job, to very small detail to the end, going shot by shot. So the methodology is, as I said, shared with industrial design, because really what I did is I kind of discovered it as I went. I studied philosophy. Yes, that I forgot actually. I went to university for philosophy too. So I had my method to attack a script, and then about 2 years ago, I met a gentleman who is in, I think 75 or 76, who is a fabulous production designer from live action, who his name is Dennis Gassner, and he did 7 Coen Brothers movies. He did Road to Perdition. He's designing the last 2 James Bond, and he's right now designing the next Blade Runner. And we co-designed a film that will never see the light of day, because that's also the life of the movie business. And we discovered that we attacked a script in the exact same way, even though he came from live action, I came from animation. He doesn't really draw, I do, but that doesn't matter. Our thinking process was very similar. So now, a citation from Freud, we have to. The subconscious is structured like a language, and the way you attack a script full of words is by trying to find the anchor of your design. So the anchor of your design is a word, it is not an image. And that's the idea. What is your story really about? So that you do by discussing that. So that image is actually from the movie that will never see the light of day. So it starts with discussions with the director and the producer, the creative producer. And so you're around the table and you discuss the story. You say, okay, so, this happened to the character. What are you really saying in that story? What really is the quintessential truth that you want to find, that you want to express in that story? That word has usually a visual resonance, and you use that as your anchor point for the movie. So that word is the essence of the story. The word is the inspiration, the visual, and the anchor point. So for example, for Shrek, we discussed with the director, Andrew Adamson, what all of that was about. It's kind of a crazy story. There is multiple, even psychoanalytical interpretation of the story. It's the story of a teenager that doesn't really fit in, so it resonates with everyone. But really, at first, when that story started, it was a patchwork of fairy tales. So it was characters coming from, Snow White and Tom Thumb and Puss in Boots and all of that. So all of that was crammed in and actually did not fit. So patchwork came around, and we decided to make that the center of the design for that movie. So for Puss in Boots, you maybe you've seen the movie. It's a backstabbing story. So every character is actually attacking every other character. So the idea was that they were all twisted in some ways. So we decided to go with twisted. So as you see it reflected in the film, if you look at all of the architecture, all the object, all the props, everything is slightly shifted, slightly twisted. Nothing is straight. Everything is, has life to it. So research is essential after you've done that. So now we live in a different era where actually when you do research, before that it was difficult to have access to books. So I do have an enormous collection of books at home that predates the interwebs. I mean, I still buy books, actually. But the difficulty is the choice. of what is the reference that will be your anchor point. So you have your word, you have your device. So now, how do you pick the image that will be the inspiration for the film? So basically, after that, you go into pre-production. So pre-production, you go into, so you define your design concept exactly like you do in industrial design. Then very early on, you start your character design, location, props, and lighting. So you have to know where you're going, and that's kind of the idea. The pre-production phase lasts about 18 months. So you have to know where you're going, because if you don't, you're heading for a huge disaster. After 18 months, you have about 300 people coming on the team. And so you have to be able to guide everybody. So here you go. The end of that first process before production is what we call the look of picture. The look of picture is basically almost all the location, all the major character designed. And that's basically what I want to bring to the students at Art Center, is to help them and figure out and teach them that methodology to help them figure out what they want their storytelling to look like. Here you go. Thank you.